What's up? It's Zilla with Zilla Mode, and on the last episode we talked about the 3 steps to becoming consistent, what it takes to release weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And in those, I kind of gave a little bit of hint about what we're going to be talking today, which is basically a way to hack the algorithm on Spotify. So let's get into it. So today I have another 3 tips, and in the last video I talked about consistency, but more importantly I talked about sending the right data to Spotify, sending the right signals to Spotify so that Spotify knows who you are, who listens to your music, and who should also listen to your music. And how do we get that data to Spotify? What are the best ways to give super hyper-focused information to Spotify in order to get our music pushed in Discover Weekly, in editorials, Release Radar, etc.? Well, that's what we're going to get in today. So let's start off with step 1. So with step 1, I kind of want to do a 2-parter. First, I want you to ask yourself, who is your listener? Like, give them a personality, even give them a name if you want. Kind of figure out, what are they listening to on a daily basis? What are the things that they're interested in? Maybe they're interested in cars. Maybe they're interested in sports. Maybe they're interested in video games, anime, movies, all different kinds of things, right? So I want you to kind of figure that out, okay? Then I want you to ask yourself, this listener that I'm thinking of, what kind of community would they be a part of? And this is where that first step really comes in. You can find communities in all different sorts of places. You can find them in subreddits. You can find them in Discord servers. You can find them in Facebook groups, Instagram groups, Instagram communities, like, you know, maybe a page that has a lot of followers, or maybe even a specific artist and their fans that listen to that style of music. Going into the comments, finding out who those people are and connecting with them in some sort of way, or just being active on those accounts and in the comments so that people kind of get an idea of who you are. Another way is to contact other artists in the scene that you're in, because a scene is a community, and the scene is not just artists. There's a lot of people that listen to these artists as well, small or big. And so connecting with those artists can actually connect you with a bigger audience, even if it's small, and it just kind of builds up more. And so that's something that you can use. But yeah, definitely check out, Facebook groups, subreddits, Discord groups. Think about this. Think about, if this is a listener that, maybe you make songs about video games or movies or something like that. Maybe your listener may be in a Discord that has to do with that subject, right? So just think about that. That's definitely the first step. Not the first step. This is not really in any order specifically, but that is one step that you can take to finding a specific listener so that you can direct the right information to Spotify and start pushing your music. So another step that you can take is finding playlists to get on that are super hyper genre focused. You have to be careful with playlists because there can be botted playlists, but one specific factor that can kind of give you a good idea if it's not botted is if the genre is completely hyper focused. Like, all the music that is on that playlist that you're looking at, they are actually supposed to be there. They are of the same genre, they are the same scene, the same community, right? And so that's really important, because when you get on one of these playlists, you are sending the right information to Spotify, because you are saying, here's my music, and look at all this other music that's around it. Look at all this music that these specific listeners are also listening to, right? If you don't have anything, you don't have anybody going to check out your music, this is like one of the easiest steps to take to kind of send the right signals to Spotify, because you are sending the most pure information to Spotify about who the listener is and like what they listen to, because it's all in that playlist, right? I'm actually experimenting right now with another project, and I did this step. I put it on super hyper focused genre playlist, and let me tell you, it was so hyper focused that I had related artists on this account, a brand new account, in less than a week, because Spotify immediately knew all the information they needed to have about my profile and the music that I was making, because the only streams that were coming in were from that listener base, the actual hyper-focused listener base that I needed. And just to let you know, like this other project that I have, I keep it low key. I don't tell anybody about it because guess what? If I told my sad Zilla listeners about this, it would actually screw up the algorithm and send the wrong signals to Spotify about what that music is, because now all of a sudden this new listener base is coming in and kind of screwing things up. Eventually, I'll have enough of a basis to kind of, expand on, and it's okay because that base is so, concentrated and it knows exactly what my music is, and it starts, getting on Discover Weekly and stuff like that. Then I can kind of start expanding and promoting on my other artist profile. But for right now, it just makes sense to only hyper focus using these playlists. One more thing about playlists before we get on to step 3. I just want you guys to know and be careful. Like I said, there are botted playlists out there, and even botted playlists that are super hyper genre focused. You have to be very careful when you're buying on the playlist. Make sure that the prices that they're offering make sense for what they actually give, right? I mean, you're not going to get a #1 spot on a big playlist for $10 a month, okay? That's probably botted. Another bad indicator for a bad playlist is if the curator doesn't even care to listen to your music before it puts it on there. They just want your money up front. That's usually a bad sign. So definitely be careful. There's so many more warning and red flags. If you guys want me to do a video on playlists and really deep dive into that stuff for you, I will do that. Just let me know down in the comments and we'll get that going. Now, step 3, we're going to talk about primary artist collabs. Now, this might actually be the most affordable and maybe most expensive option on the list. And it just matters on who you're trying to collab with. But more importantly, this is actually probably the most effective step. If you are trying to connect to a certain scene, there's not really any better way to gain followers in that scene and listeners in that scene than collaborating with people who have those followers and listeners. So when you do a primary artist collab, if you don't know what a primary artist collab is, here's kind of a quick summary. Basically, it's when you co-release a track with another artist, meaning that when the track drops, it shows up on both of your profiles on Spotify or, iTunes, any platform that you're releasing on. Now, that means that you get access to their followers. You guys get connected access to even listeners, if it's in that same month. And that means that you get access to their release radar. So you get a lot of their release radar, and you can have really big opening weeks based on how big the artist that you're collabing with is. So you can understand why I say it could be free, it could be very affordable, or it could be very expensive based on how big the artist is. Regardless, even if you collaborate with a small artist or a big artist, you may not get a whole lot of streams with the smaller artists, but you'll still be sending a lot of the same signals to Spotify that this is what my music is and this is who my listeners are, right? So definitely be careful about who you collaborate with. Don't, collaborate with somebody super outside of your genre and that would have a completely different set of listeners than you. After a while, it's good to kind of broaden your fan base and find those kinds of listeners that are a little bit more diverse, but starting out, definitely stay super hyper genre focused and do a lot of collabs. There's really not a downside to doing main artist collabs besides maybe having to give up that half of your royalties to the other artist. But really, when you look at the return on investment, it's pretty hard to complain about. So really, to wrap up step 3 and really all of the steps together, it really comes down to one thing, and that is sending the right information to Spotify. These are just ways, various ways that you could use all of them, or you could just use one of them specifically to kind of get that information and send it to Spotify so that Spotify knows what to do with your music and can push you in the future, which is going to get you way more followers and way more streams than any kind of playlist, promo video, or advertisement that you could pay for. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Zilla Mode. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this today, because honestly, this is some of the information that I wish I knew when I was first starting, because if I had this information and it was this simply brought to me, it would have made my life so much more easy. But regardless, you know, after experimenting, I found this information out. I kind of figured it out, and I used it to my advantage. And now I have over 250,000 monthly listeners, and I get over 1 million streams every single month. I'm telling you, if you really focus and you work hard, you put the work in, and you don't, you know, quit, you can make it. You can do this thing. I mean, I really honestly believe that. But anyway, if you like this video, definitely hit subscribe down below. Click the bell icon to get notified whenever I drop videos just like this. And until next time, I'm Zilla, and you just went into Zilla mode. Zilla out.